Together, sit yourself up straight, put your feet together, and help me to welcome, in the biggest way you know how, with the Los Angeles Black salutation for Dr. Boyce Watkins. He's here, y'all. He's here. Yes, he's here.
Thank you so much. I swear, I come out here, to the West Coast, and every time I know I'm at home. Like, I know I'm at home. Some of y'all I ain't never met, but I know I'm at home because I know a relative and a loved one when I see one. And so I want to say thank you very much for allowing me to address you today. It is an honor, a distinct pleasure, and a wonderful opportunity for us to share some information and perspectives that can help all of us. And also I will be brief. I'm not gonna talk all day because I don't want to be a big windbag that wants to hear himself talk. I'm hoping that I can share something that will benefit you. So I start off by thinking about the things that come to mind when I come to LA. My center is in Chicago, but I think about the fact that LA and Chicago have so many things in common. Number one, top of the list is black people dying in the streets for no reason, right? We both dealt with this. Chicago, we deal with this. We have a mass shooting in our city every single week. We have El Paso every single week. Everything that happened in Dayton, we have that every single week. LA has it every single week. And we know that we've become so numb to it that it doesn't even really hit the headlines. Nobody really talks about it, but we're supposed to talk about it, right? So when everybody was talking about what happened in El Paso, I said, well, let me tell you what happened in Chicago. Let's talk about that. Not that El Paso does not matter, but in my mind, we matter, and we matter a lot. We matter first. I don't have nothing against nobody, but I put black people first. So I don't have nothing against you. I don't have nothing against you unless you got something against us. Then we have an issue. But outside of that, black people come first. And I think that that's something we can unify around. I made a commitment this year. I said, I talked to Dr. Anderson a lot, and we deal with what I call the Negro naysayers, the people that have a problem for every solution. And he really helped me kind of see it in a certain way and said, you really don't even have to argue with these people. You don't have to argue with anybody. You don't have to hate anybody. You can love everybody, wish them the best, and say, this is the direction we're going. If you want to jump on the bandwagon, good. Eventually you're going to jump on the bandwagon, because the things that we talk about in terms of building community, building black strength, building black wealth, educating our own children, things like that, these are not hard ideas to unify around. These are not controversial concepts. They're only controversial if you're used to oppressing black people. And we know that oppression is not a lasting business model. That cannot last. That's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, especially when you're trying to oppress some of the greatest people in the history of the world. We have something in our DNA that just makes us so unique, so special. Nobody else can really rise out of what we've risen out of and create this kind of beauty, this kind of brilliance, this kind of power, this kind of intelligence. Now, another thing that I think about, when I think about the things that LA and Chicago have in common, is I think about the police. I remember driving down, I was rolling down Crenshaw, and I said, yeah, it's funny, I was talking to an Uber driver, and the guy's 25 years old, and he was a Hispanic guy, and I said, yeah, before you were born, I said, people didn't trust the LAPD back then, they don't trust the LAPD now. And Chicago police, same thing, right? So we're dealing with these systems that are gonna take some time to address and confront. We all have a different role to play. We're all playing our part, we're all doing our thing. Now let's talk specifically about principles that we can rally around. Codes of conduct, I think, are extremely important in terms of us unifying and achieving specific goals. I think also in terms of codes of conduct, when we think about leadership in our communities, we have this whole tradition of black leaders, right? And for different people, that means different things. For some people, a black leader is somebody who marched with them with Dr. King. For somebody else, a black leader might be Barack Obama. For somebody else, a black leader might be somebody who's making money in corporate America. I kind of want to shift that thinking and shift that model a little bit. I want to shift the idea of hero worship and shift the idea of us thinking that we all got to be on the same page all the time on every single issue in order to move forward. I believe that black leadership starts in our house. I believe that in your house, in your kingdom, and I'm big on empire building, everybody should be building an empire. Ask yourself, what empire am I building that's going to be around 100 years from now? How are my great-great-grandchildren going to remember me? How are they going to, because there are little things that you can do right now in your life, right now today, that are going to have a massive impact on your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I don't care what age you are. I don't care if you're 7 or 97. There are little things you can do right now that will make a huge impact long term. For example, go back 100 years, 1919. The people back then, maybe they felt like there was nothing they could do for you. There's nothing they could lead for you. There's nothing they could invest in for you to create a harvest for you. There's nothing they could do. They felt powerless. But if you could go back in time to 1919, you could probably point to them and show them and show them specifically, look, here's some little things you can do, Grandma, that will have a huge impact on your family 100 years from today. You know, Grandma, you could go buy a little bit of land, and your grandma would say, yeah, but those houses, they're overpriced, and it's not a big deal. But no, Grandma, that house costs $8,000 right now, and it looks overpriced. But in 100 years, that house is going to be worth $400,000. Right? So maybe you can get the family together, go buy that house, and leave that land and leave that house for the family, and we keep it in the family, and it's going to be worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars 100 years from now. Think about investing. Harvest. Again, today's Harvest Festival Day. Harvest means what? To have a harvest, you must plant what? Right. So you might say, look, Grandma, look, this stock market. And she would say, no, we don't mess with the stock market because it just crashed and everybody's scared of the stock market. You say, no, Grandma, look, if you just take your family pennies, just pull your pennies together, get the family together, less money than it costs to buy an old used car, and just buy some stocks and just hold those stocks, just hold those investments, leave them in the family, put them in the will. In 100 years, that's going to be worth well over millions of dollars. So, Grandma, there's little things you can do that can have a huge impact later on. Many of us have huge impacts in our lives right now that we feel today. Traditions, customs that have been in our family for generations, where the person who started those customs, the person who put that culture in your family, had no idea what lasting impact that little action was going to have. When I was a little boy, my grandmother used to buy me these savings bonds for Christmas. I didn't get toys all the time. I got a couple of toys, but I would always get savings bonds. Every year she would give me these savings bonds. And it was because she worked at the government. She worked at the Census Bureau. My grandmother never finished college. She never made more than $20,000 a year, but she was always financially perfect. She was always financially on point, financially free, house paid off, car paid off. I would see people that made 4 times more money than my grandmother come to her to borrow money. And that's when I learned about money mindset, and that being rich does not make you financially free, and being poor does not mean that you can't be free. And also, by the way, she raised 4 kids by herself, no help. She got a divorce when she was about 17 years old. Most people ain't even married by 17. She was getting divorced at 17. So she had an interesting experience. But she used to buy me these savings bonds when I was little. And I didn't understand what a savings bond was. I was like, what is this? Is this money? Because money, I knew I could do with money. I knew I could go buy some candy or some shoes. And she's like, no, it's not really money. Well, what is it? It says 100. Does that mean it's worth $100? She said, no, actually, I bought it for $50. But it'd be worth $100 in 7 years. And I didn't realize at that time that was my first introduction to compound interest and how money grows when you plant the seed and later on you get the harvest. And so as I got older, and I went on and I studied finance, and I got the PhD and everything else, and I was teaching these college students about money and wealth and investing and how all that works. I kept thinking about my grandmother, and I would call my grandmother. All the last decade up until she died, I was calling her all the time because I knew that grandmothers don't last forever. And I said, I want to get the most out of my grandma while she's here. And we would talk about planting seeds and getting a harvest. We would talk about that a lot. And when she would talk about the mindset of money, and it was fascinating to me that even though I learned all the most advanced theories that you can learn in finance, I mean, you have to really, really know that stuff in order to get that level of credential. It's very, very difficult to do. I would go back to what my grandmother taught me, and I realized that the more complicated I get, the more it came back to the simple shit. Excuse my French. The more complex I got, the simpler it got. The higher I went, the closer I got to God, and then when I got to God, it got simple again. The universe makes things simple, and so really when I'm thinking about wealth and investing and everything else, I'm not really thinking about the complexities and the theories and the things that confuse us and scare us and make us run away. I think about what my grandmother taught me and the basic things. You know, it's like when I wanted to lose weight, you know, I remember that I had this problem where I kept gaining weight. I just thought that getting old meant you were supposed to get fat. You know, every year I put on more weight, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, and every year it just drove me crazy. And I remember I was saying to my father, I was like, you know, I really want to lose weight, and I gotta, you know, I figure I have to cut this out of my diet and start eating this and start doing that and start doing this workout and that workout and pay money to join this class so I can learn how to do it. And he just basically said, take your fat ass to the gym. Like literally, he was like, just take your fat ass to the gym, stop eating those damn Twizzlers, and you won't be fat. You know, and so the reality, when you talk about us having a harvest for our community, this is Harvest Festival Day, so we're talking about the harvest, whatever that means to you. I would encourage you to keep it simple. Keep it real simple, because it's the simple solution that usually is the most effective. The simple solution is the one that's easiest to transmit to your children. It's the simplest solution that's easy to implement, and you apply it consistently and you find that your results are dramatically different. It ain't complicated. Unless you want it to be complicated. So let's talk about some simple ideas that I'm gonna present to you. You don't have to listen to anything I say. You know, I just want to make sure that's clear. You don't. If I say something that sounds stupid or crazy, just take your time, keep it in your pocket. Maybe it'll help you later. But I'm gonna share some simple ideas. Here's one simple thing that we believe in. We have the Black Business School. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Black Business School. You should check it out. You can actually get started for free. There are some classes that have a low cost, but you can start for free. theblackbusinessschool.com. Feel free to check it out. But anyway, one of the things that we believe in the Black Business School is what we call the Black Core of 3. The Black Core of 3, I thought about this for a long time in terms of, I said, you know, if I could really condense and reduce and maybe into 3 little seeds of knowledge, what we need as a community that will solve 80-90% of our problems, it would be this. And the Black Core of 3 is we believe Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black business. And where did that come from? Well, I thought about education. I thought about all the miseducated Negroes we have in our community that are destroying Black people worse than the KKK. Right? I thought about and then I said, well, let's backpedal. Let's, you know, when you get that crazy Negro at 25 years old, 30 years old, where did he come from? Where did these people come from? These are seeds that are harvesting. Like these are manifesting after somebody planted a seed 20, 30 years ago. So you got to go back in time to really understand where it all comes from. So I was like, well, where's this coming from? Who educated this person? Oh, I get it. Oh, the oppressor educated that person. Right? When the child was born, the first thing that the parents did to help that child was to hand them over to the very same people who've been oppressing Black people for 400 years. That don't sound like a good strategy. That just doesn't sound good. You don't hand a rape victim over to the rapist, you know, to raise the rape victim. You don't do that. So the child is going to these schools, and they're going through the experience I had, where you're being educated by these people who don't understand you, who hate your guts, who think you're a danger, who guide you, you know, like I was guided to things like basketball and football, thinking that was the only thing I could do. That was the only contribution I could make to the world, was to play a damn sport. And I ain't even that tall. Like, what the hell I got? What business I got thinking I'm gonna be a professional athlete? I'm not built to be an athlete, but I couldn't do anything else. In my mind, I wasn't smart. In my mind, I was a social deviant because I was in detention all the time. I couldn't have been smart because look at my grades. They're verifying to me repeatedly that you're not an intelligent person. And you're looking at the entire system and you say, oh, this is what's happening to millions of young Black boys that could have been great Black men but become something else because they're miseducated early. So I believe that education should start with the first teacher. The first teacher is the mother. If your child goes through the school and they're 18 and they cannot read, I'm not going to look at the school. I'm not going to look at the teacher. I'm going to look at you. I'm going to look at you. If your child can't read, I'm going to look at you. It's my job as a parent to make sure my child can read. Don't get me wrong. Maybe I try outsourcing it to somebody else, but if they don't do the job, I'm supposed to step in. The mother's the first teacher. The father's the second teacher. I get it because that baby came out of your body. I respect that. But I know the father matters. They try to tell us that the fathers don't matter, and then you get the chaos that you get all throughout the country where these fathers have been taken away. The fathers matter more than anything, and we know this, and we must hold on to this. So moving on. So when you talk about education, early, we're handing our children over to the oppressor through these public schools. Again, capitalism, they're making money off your children. They don't care whether they're educated or not. Your children become cattle. So remember, black people have always had a role in the capitalist system, but your role was to be exploited as a commodity in the system. They're driving the car, you're the gasoline, and that goes in the engine of the car to make the car move. So they need you in the system. They want you to be part of the American system. The problem is that it's a system built on pimps and hoes. And every pimp needs its hoes. The pimp can't operate without hoes. So we got to stop signing up to be hoes. Moving on. Continuing with education. I could say more on this, but I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna talk all day. Education. What's the next thing you do when you are miseducated? Again, you either end up uneducated or you end up miseducated. So you're miseducated, meaning you made straight A's, you're a good student, you're a success story, you're on your way to be a successful black person. What's the first thing they tell you to do after that? Oh, you should go to college, go down to a school like a USC, a racist school that doesn't even hire black people. They only let black people in if they can dribble a basketball or throw a football. Go look at the data. Just go look at the data. Don't believe me. Go look at the data. And then you're supposed to sign a piece of paper for this thing called a student loan, in which you are committing a couple $100,000 of your precious family wealth to get this piece of paper called a college degree that may or may not get you a $50,000 a year job when you get done. May or may not, if you're lucky. What's the result of that? What's the result of that? Now, this is not anti-college. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying it's anti-college. This is anti-stupidity. All right, so let's be clear on this. So you look further down the road, you find that half of all black college graduates default on their student loans. What does a default mean? That means you got bad credit. What does that mean? That means that you want to start a business? Nope. Because now you are an economic slave and you have to spend your life working until the grave to pay off this loan that you never repay, and you're going to die in debt anyway. 2, buying a home, much, much harder now because you defaulted on your loans. You're now in that bad credit space. It becomes much more difficult for you to make the economic moves you have to make. So in a way, it's almost like being in a basketball game where you're already 30 points behind and the other team comes along and they chop off your feet at the ankle and you're trying to play basketball on 2 nubs. You ain't even got no feet to jump off of and you're already 30 points behind. So again, it's all about a process, right? So I'm not saying that college is bad. I'm saying that you have to think through every step of the process and get off the grid and stop doing what people tell you to do, because if the most successful, most educated black people are the ones who are dying in debt, then are you really surprised that black wealth has dropped in the last 20 or 30 years? Are you surprised that we're predicted to have zero median net worth by the year 2053? No, that's like, no, there's no surprise. That's like me saying if I keep walking straight, I'm going to bump into that chair, right? You have to see where this is leading us so you can make different decisions. Create our own jobs. One of the crises that has existed in America for many, many years is black unemployment, black wealth issues. We talk about wealth gaps and stuff like that. Well, if you analyze the black unemployment issue, one thing that we know for sure is that the number one employer of any group of people are people from that same ethnic group. Black people, unfortunately, because of our training, we have been trained not to create our own jobs. So what does that do? Well, that not only leads to reductions in wealth and opportunity, but it also leads to tremendous amounts of physical and mental stress. That's why black men die young, because every day you get up and you're having to go and kiss the ass of some man who has no respect for you. And a real man is not built to kiss the ass of another man. It does not work. And a real woman does not respect a man who gets up every day and kisses the ass of another man. That's just real. So if black men want to be kings, which every one of us can be if we choose to be, if a black man wants to be a king, he must learn to build a castle. If you want to be a king, you must learn to build a castle. No other man is going to invite you into his castle and make you the king. He's not. At best, he'll make you a servant or he'll make you a court jester. So you'll either be there for his entertainment or for his servitude. That's why, actually, when they look at the studies and they say, who has the biggest pay gaps? Is it men versus women? Is it black versus white? The only group of people that make the same amount of money in corporate America as white males are who? Guess who? Gay black men. Yes. Go look it up. Go look it up. I'm not dissing anybody for. I don't care what you do in the bedroom, by the way. When it comes to stuff like that, to me, that's a secondary issue. But it is primary in the sense that it all comes down to going back to that key point I made earlier. You're welcome to come into the system as long as you're serving the needs of those who control the system. If you are an asset that they can utilize, then you are welcome into the economic system in every way under specific conditions and terms. So when you talk about the relationship between the white male and the gay black man, well, you know, sex is a pretty strong driver of male behavior. So a lot of men want to work next to somebody that they might want to get with after the day is done, right? So, but the masculine black male is not in that category. You're seen as a threat. You're seen as somebody that if you're intelligent and you're strong and you're capable, then they want to get rid of you. They want to annihilate you. Why? Well, because all throughout the animal kingdom, males eliminate male threats. That's what happens, right? So at the end of the day, it's not me telling you what to do. It's me telling you what I'm seeing. And what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a country that loves to see the black man remain a little boy. I was watching a commercial, a Mountain Dew commercial, where they had these three rappers called the Migos. Anybody heard the Migos? They sound like they barely got out of the third grade. You know, it's that anti-intellectualism that's taken over hip hop, where being smart is not cool anymore. Being stupid and being a clown is what they really love. And these Negroes rode up in the Mountain Dew commercial, all of them in their 20s. They rode up on tricycles. I kid you not. These three grown-ass black men, two or three of my fathers, I believe, were on tricycles, or it was a tricycle or a big wheel or something like that. And I was thinking, my God, how would I have felt as a kid to see my father on a goddamn tricycle? And as grown men, tricycles are for 5-year-olds. They're not for grown men. But it goes back to this idea that the black man is always welcome into the system if he's feminized or if he's a child. If you engage in childlike behavior, they love you. But when you start acting like a man, they have an issue. For example, mark my words, they gonna come get LeBron James at some point. LeBron James will not be allowed to be King James for very long. I'm gonna say this publicly. I can see the writing on the wall. At some point, there will be a scandal. Something will be designed to take him down because they do not want a black man doing what he's doing, behaving the way he's behaving, confronting systems the way he's confronting them. I'd be stunned if LeBron goes unscathed for the next 20 or 30 years. I just don't think that's going to happen. Just so when that happens, just send me a text or shoot me an email. The third point, Black Core 3, educate our own children, create our own jobs, support black businesses. Supporting black businesses, here's why that's important, in case you're not aware or you need another perspective on this. First off, we know what people, we know the rhetoric. Whenever we want to boycott other businesses or just support our own, people always twist that, you're racist, or that's not right, blah, blah, blah. But people like Dr. Claude Anderson make it very clear that they've been boycotting you since forever. Like they've always boycotted black businesses. They've always boycotted black businesses. So if black businesses cannot depend on black consumers, then they can't depend on anybody. They have no friends. And the other thing about supporting black businesses is that you're talking about something very basic and very simple when it comes to wealth building. Everybody's talking about reparations right now, and I'm all in support of that. I mean, of course we deserve reparations. No question. Problem is they can't pay the bill. The debt's too high. I don't think they're going to pay the full debt. The full debt is at least $15 trillion, but that's assuming you can put a dollar figure on 100,000 rapes and 50,000 castrations and whatever the numbers are, right? Assuming you can put a dollar value on 400 years of trauma and a family destruction. I mean, assuming you can put a dollar value on it, that number will be about $15 trillion. They're not going to do it. They're talking about $500 billion, couple $100 billion. They're not even talking about a number. They're talking about numbers that are so low that you almost don't even want it because you don't want them to think that because they wrote the check that everything's okay, that we're all good. If I steal $10 million from you and I write you a check for $5,000 and say we straight now, right? You'd be a sucker if you agree to that shit. You'd be a complete idiot. I'm sorry, I apologize for cussing. This is coming out. That's God. God's talking to me. I got to share what He tells me. So here's the deal. We're talking about reparations and all this, and those things are important. I support that wholeheartedly. But here's what you got to understand is that when you're really talking about economic repair and economic strength, and again, I'm not chasing equality or diversity or all these other, or inclusion, all these watered down. I'm talking about power. If you're talking about building real economic power, you must talk about the way the dollar bill works when you're circulating it through the community. When a dollar is circulated in a community at one time and leaves that community, that's $1. When that dollar is circulated 10 times in that community, that $1 becomes what? $10. Right. So that 1.3 trillion that they talk about every year, and they call it spending power, but that's a horrible term to use because there's no power in giving all your money away. That's like telling a little girl, oh, you're beautiful, you have lots of hoe power. Like you could be the best hoe on the block. That's not power. You're not empowering her by telling her that. You know, you're not doing that. You can tell her beauty is power, but you don't tell her like your power is to be the best prostitute you can be. You don't do that. But so when somebody tells you that our 1.3 trillion is spending power, then that is a misleading term in itself. But if you take that 1.3 trillion in economic power, where you can choose to spend it, invest it, or recirculate that, then that 1.3 trillion can become 5 or 10 trillion like that if we're all committed to circulating that money in the community. If I give my dollar to him and he goes and buys from her, she buys from her, she buys from him, then that dollar has been used several times in the same community, which is a magical increase in wealth. So I leave you guys with this point, this important point. The key idea is that coming together is extremely important. We have everything that we need except each other. When you come together, economic models show that when people come together, like we're coming together right now today, when people come together, wealth just magically increases. Wealth magically is built. So everybody that talks about all the other topics that seem unrelated, like when they talk about health in the black community, they talk about relationships in the black community, all those things are related to your overall institutional empire building economic power because the ability to circulate your dollars, the ability to keep your wealth, the ability to grow your empires is all built on your ability to relate to and love one another. If I don't love you and I don't trust you, am I going to do business with you? No. If I don't love you and I don't trust you, am I going to come buy from you? No. Right, so ultimately, the ability to love, trust, forgive, build each other up, support each other is all deeply connected to our ability to come together economically. Because if you can't get along, if you get caught up in what they call cancel culture, like, oh man, he pissed me off, I ain't messing with him no more. If you get in that mindset on a regular basis, then what happens is you end up stranded and all alone, and then all the energy, all the economic power, all the intellectual power, all the assets you could have brought back to your community are dissipated because you have nobody to work with, you have nobody to build with. So let me give you a tangible tip that you may want to try. This is what my family does. Every Sunday, we live in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. Every Sunday night, we get together on Zoom. Zoom is like Skype, except better, easier to use. Even grandma can use Zoom and Skype. And we get on there and we have a family business meeting. And the goal of the family business meeting is to talk about how we're going to build the Watkins family empire to be something that's going to last for the next 500 years. And when we get together and when we talk business for sure. That's when we bring our wealth together. And when I'm talking about wealth, I'm not talking about money. Most of the time when I say the word wealth, I am not talking about money. Money is one type of wealth. We're talking about the sharing of resources, sharing of ideas, sharing of contacts, sharing of all different kinds of assets and experiences that we can bring to the table to help each other succeed. It might even be moral support. We're sharing information. I find out that my sister's working on something that I can help her with, so I step in and help her, and next thing you know, my sister's making more money, and then she comes back and helps me with something, and then we're helping another cousin, right? So what we're doing is we're pooling our assets together and building an economy. The other thing that we're doing is we're getting an opportunity to relate to each other in ways that are non-economic. I get to see the baby. Oh, the baby's grown so much. I get to talk to my grandfather, 93 years old. Oh, hey, granddaddy, how you doing? Right? These are things that a lot of us don't do because we're so busy at work. You know, you out here serving some white man's business, building his company every day, giving up 100,000 hours of your life. I added up how much time we spend on the job. It's about 80 to 100,000 hours that should be spent with people that you love, people that you want to build up. Does it even make sense that a lot of parents spend more time with their job than they spend with their own children? That is not natural. That is not natural at all. And I'm going to tell you this too. When I started working around black folks most of the time, my stress level went way down. I was much happier with my life when I got to work with my own. In fact, I don't think about a lot of stuff that's happening in the world because most days I'm looking at people that look like you and I. And that is a beautiful world to me. That's a wonderful place to be. So ultimately, what I would encourage you to do is to get with your family, start with your team, start with your empire. Forget what the so-called black leaders are doing. Don't worry about them. Don't even worry about me. If I can be of assistance, then go for it. But really, I'm talking about your empire, your family. What are you going to do for your family for the next 100 years? What are you going to plant? What seeds are you going to plant? What harvest will they have? How will they be better off than you? What are you going to build for them? We need a nation of builders. Bottom line, we ain't white. We don't need a nation of job seekers. We need a nation of builders. Period. Thank you all very much. It was an honor to talk to you.
Okay, he's going to take a few questions. Somebody said few. Y'all don't get it twisted. Said a few. Okay? So let's roll with it.
Question about Bitcoin. Yeah, how is that moving? Like, what's going on with that?
I think that Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general as an industry has a bright future. Cryptocurrency, particularly blockchain has a surefire bright future, which blockchain is the underlying technology behind cryptocurrency. Blockchain is here to stay. Cryptocurrency is probably here to stay. Bitcoin might be here to stay, right? So my strategy when it comes to crypto is I do it like I do all the other assets. I just diversify. I don't put all my money in one place. One of the keys to investing is not put all your eggs in one basket. And you just wait and see what happens. And the thing about investing is it's like playing basketball. Sometimes you win games, sometimes you lose games. Sometimes you hit a shot, sometimes you miss. And so I can't say for sure exactly what the future of crypto is. A lot of it comes down to how they interact with these world governments. They have a lot to lose if cryptocurrency does emerge as an alternative to traditional currency.
What about teaching our children financial literacy? Where do we start? What do we do?
Okay, in terms of teaching your children financial literacy, and I think that's important. That's one of the things I didn't get a chance to mention, but we believe in the Black Business School that one way for Black people to get ahead is for us to send our children to business school when they're this age. I don't have anything against other things that we do. You know, we have a lot of expert basketball players and football players. I think that's great, but I don't believe that a black child should know more about basketball or football than they know about economic survival and economic strength, right? So ultimately, I think that whatever your child's age is, I think that you should start early. There are tons of resources on the internet. Now, if you want to know in particular, the program we have at the Black Business School is at blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. I'll say it again, blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. Feel free to check that out. We also have some financial workbooks and flashcards that we created specifically for Black children. And you can go to financialworkbooks.com to take a look at that. That's financialworkbooks.com. Yes, sir.
Dr. Boyce, what's your take on the relationship that African Americans can develop with the continent of Africa?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people going out there, taking advantage of the business opportunities that are there, and also bringing their knowledge there to help the country and the community grow.
Yeah, I think that's the next big wave.
Can you summarize this question?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. I sure will. I was definitely going to do that.
Can you summarize this question?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Well, he was asking about the connection between African Americans and Africa, the continent of Africa. and how important that is in economic development. I think that's critically important. In fact, I think that's the next big wave. I think that's the next big move that people are going to make, is understanding that our roots to our power go back to the diaspora. And many of the leaders in Africa that I've interacted with, they're on board with that completely. They're right now, I think it was the African Union, an ambassador came to the FraserNet conference, which is a networking conference, and she said, "We want you to come back home, come back home." You know, so there are people that are sending delegations back. I think the hurdle is people just don't know what to do. You know, a lot of African Americans only know America, right? And so I think there's an education process, but I know that we're definitely involved in that and supportive of that, because I do think that that's where a lot of great opportunities lie. Africa is going to be the next China. In fact, even from a demographic standpoint, there's a young labor force there. Whereas in a lot of Asian countries and European countries, people are getting older, so the productivity of those countries is dropping, whereas Africa is really on the rise. There's a lot of opportunities there. Okay, you sir, yes sir.
So I don't know if have you felt about rectifying or at least apologizing to the ADOS and the turmoil that Talib Kweli and all this. You see ADOS supporters here. I love you, brother, but I really didn't appreciate the interview you had with Talib. I thought that it really poisoned the waters and muddied the waters. I represent the Nation of Islam. I didn't like how Cobra used the Nation of Islam to attack ADOS. So my name is Brother Jermaine. I'm trying to figure out, brother, how are we going to start your healing, because it's some real bad funk and blood, and you're coming to Kentucky, you come to your backyard, brother, and I'm afraid that, you know, the wrong thing might get said. And Talib, you know, I got my own issues with Talib, you know, and so we need to rectify that.
So let me
was just killed.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Right, and so I hear what you're saying. Just out of respect for everybody, but I heard you, and I respect what you're saying. And when I saw your shirt, I said, man, I bet he's gonna answer about ADOS, and I hope he does. I think it's good though. I think it's really important to do that, because if you want my personal perspective, and not that my opinion really matters that much, but the ADOS movement, I think, is a great idea, and the people that are in the movement are great people. I do not feel that way about the leadership in terms of the hashtag. I feel that when you have a movement that's built on attacking, you're attacking people from the diaspora, you're attacking Dr. Claude Anderson. They were not you, but they were attacked. Go look it up. They attacked Minister Farrakhan. I can't fuck with that. You can't be attacking these people that are giving so much to the community and claim to represent the community. So I think that the members of ADOS should say, this is what we are, this is what we represent. I'm ADOS, but I'm not supporting nobody who's attacking the people that I love. I can't rock with that. So that's where it stands. But I respect you. I appreciate you asking that question. Yes, sir.
Great question. You said about LeBron. You're saying, and I know you're not saying this, he shouldn't present himself as a strong black man. He shouldn't build schools for black children. He shouldn't speak out against
I think LeBron is my favorite athlete on the planet. Yeah, LeBron is doing everything I would love for him to do. You know, I'm just saying that they're gonna come get him, but it's okay. It's okay, because you can't run up the hill firing your gun and expect them not to shoot back. You know, and I think that's the problem. You have a lot of black people who think you can go fire shots and they're not going to fire back, or they get demoralized. It's like, no, when you're in a battle, the other team is going to fight back. So I think LeBron is doing everything right, and I'm preparing people so that we can be prepared to defend him when they come get him. That's what I'm saying, because I'm going to defend him no matter what. Yes, sir.
Talking about young kids going to college, and I heard you talking about going into debt. Is there some type of program that we can go online or look up to help kids get out of debt?
So you're talking about people that went to college that are in the debt now?
Right.
You know, there's ways. Actually, even a lot of credit rating agencies and banks and stuff, they know the student loan debt problem is such a big crisis across the country that they don't really count that debt the same way they do like consumer debt, stuff like that. So there's ways to work it. At the very least, try to get out of default and get on a payment plan so that you show that you're at least trying to work toward eliminating the debt. But they're not stupid. They all understand that it's a crisis. So it's not like it's completely over, but you know, so you have to try to do something to show that you're trying to at least confront it. But I don't think they expect anybody to repay that debt, because it shouldn't cost you, you know, $200,000 to go to college anyway. That's not even logical. So I think that eventually they're going to pass legislation because it's affecting everybody, not just our community.
Regarding leverage, my name is Shirley Husar. I'm with Urban Young Church. We hold our own accountable. That's what we're doing here. Leverage. We have a situation where we know there's private entities that are leveraging against other cultures against us. For example, in 2015 under President Obama, the Latino community worked with Wells Fargo and got $125 billion to build the infrastructure of their community. What money are we pressing on private businesses outside of government to leverage for our best interests? Because what we're finding is that in California, they're trying to have us assimilate for other people's languages and cultures. We're down to 6%. We have most of our people homeless. We have mental illness issues. And the elected officials locally are doing nothing. I'm not an immigrant. I'm not an illegal immigrant. I am a descendant of slaves, okay? My people built this country. We all know that story. The question is, how do we leverage, especially from Hollywood, when we have all these Jewish people have foundations. We don't even have foundations fighting legally for our best interests with the police departments and everything. So leverage. How do we leverage private entities and even people in the entertainment?
Okay, well, I'll say this. I don't know the answer to every question, but I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think that if you want to know if I think politicians give black people a raw deal, I've always felt that way. Y'all know I ain't Democrat, I'm not Republican, liberal, conservative, none of that. I'm just black, and that's where I want to be. And so ultimately, I don't really know. I don't really know how to. But I've seen Wells Fargo trying to buy their way back into the black community. Every event I go to, a lot of them are sponsored by Wells Fargo, and it kind of bothers me because we know what Wells Fargo did to black people. But I think, but I'll say this: if you have something that you're doing, and it's something that needs some backing or support, email that to us, manager@boycewatkins.com. That's my manager's email address. And I'll support it. I'll shout it out, and I'll lend support to that. I don't know exactly what to do in every situation, but I can support. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, and it's almost piggybacking off your comment. And my question is from a little bit different perspective, having lived globally. And I view it as we have a global opportunity. In this day of capitalism, this is something unheard of. You can reach across the waters very easily, and you have a lot more power in your hands than we know as a community. We also have global influence because we are recognized, Black Americans specifically as a group, are recognized globally as the strongest group in the world, as the world is very familiar with our experience and that we've survived capitalism. We survived now, I'm in the health business, that the chances of pre and postnatal care for a Black woman is 450% higher than white counterpart of actually dying. What I'm asking Mr. Boyce Watkins is in the days of Uber, in the days of DoorDash, my son who was born in Israel just paid for a new car just with doing DoorDash, but he's coming from a different mindset. What things can we do collectively to take advantage of this engine before it gives out for us globally? We could be the ones that are creating the new Uber, the new DoorDash, the new this, and this reaches across the water. I just hired some people from Fiverr from Nigeria, so I'm really more interested in these type of platforms where we can combine as a community, invest in, go PTO, and we're all millionaires within a very short period of time. So I want to ask about those type of platforms and what suggestions do you have for that?
Let me just make a comment before we answer that question. The next person to have a question, we want the question versus the dissertation, okay? So that way more people can get a chance to answer. Yeah, and we'll be running over time and they'll be playing music soon. First, let's give Dr. Barker a hand.
And you can feel free to email me your dissertation. I'll take a look at it. Lonzo, I see you back there. Is that Lonzo? What's happening, brother? I see you, man. That point is it's almost like there's a shorter and a longer term strategy on that. When you talk about creating these big tech companies, the DoorDashes and the Ubers and everything else, there's a mindset that comes with that. And when I've mentioned that it's important for us to create a generation of builders, that's part of what I'm talking about. How many brilliant, Black Mark Zuckerberg types have we had who ended up going to work for somebody else because the whole family told them to go get a good job, right? I think that we have to understand that entrepreneurship, it's a spirit and a culture as much as it is a skill set. And so in order to build entrepreneurial ventures, you have to have what I call fertile economic soil in your family. So that means that, I don't know if anybody else has a family like this where like you tell them you quit your job to start a business and they kind of feel sorry for you. You know, like oh well, white people must not have wanted you. Like the only reason he started his business because they don't want him at the post office, right? And it kind of it's not cool. It's not supportive. And then even when people get moral support, they may not get financial support. You know, and so what I encourage everybody to do is when you see somebody you care about going out and fighting the good fight, even if you think they're gonna lose, jump in the fight with them. Just do like you did with your cousins when you were little. You know, if we go down, we're going down together, right? And so, so ultimately, I think that having that culture of building and entrepreneurship, family empire building, things like that, that's where these companies come from. But then you also need a backbone of training in terms of our children learning the right things. A lot of people go to school a long time learning a bunch of shit that don't matter. That's right. Right, seriously. You know, so I say anytime you take a class or learn a skill or learn anything from anybody, ask yourself, how is this helping me to achieve a specific objective? Right? And so I think that by focusing on education, I think knowing technology and business, that's the wave of the future. I don't care what your child does, I think they should have a firm understanding in those two areas, and then they can go do other things if they want to. For example, every black child should know how to start a business by the age of 12. Every black child should own stock. Every black child should know the fundamentals of buying real estate at the age of 12 and also know why it's important to own your community. And then if we do that, then what's happened is we've created 1 million economic soldiers, and what will happen is in the next generation, if we back them with capital and equity-based crowdfunding, things like that, like what Jay Morrison did with the Tulsa Fund, then you can fund those great ideas when they come along. So that's it in a nutshell. Yes, ma'am. She says this is the last question, right. But I do a lot of stuff online. So if you want to go to two things. Tomorrow I am doing a day-long investing seminar. We're going to talk all day about this kind of stuff. So if you're interested, feel free to go to drboycelosangeles.com. That's drboycelosangeles.com. Also online.